this year competition, we are actually overwhelming, receiving 76 team. Okay, in total with 130 team member from Swinburne, Unimas, UCTS, and Curtin. Okay, so participate in the various technology area, including IoT, big data, mobile and cloud apps, automotive, smart manufacturing, and other technology innovation area. So for your information, 9 teams will be shortlisted as the top winner and win the cash prizes during this today event. So without further ado, we are going to have the first event on the panel discussion. The topic will be on challenges faced by the industry and the new set skills required for the fresh graduate in the post-mortem pandemic economy. So let me pass the mic to Haslina as a moderator for this panel session. Okay, Haslina, please.
Okay, so very good morning to everyone. I just want to welcome you all to today's session. We've been very lucky. We've got the support of the Ministry of Education, Science and Technological Research, Master, and Sarawak Multimedia Authority, Swinburne. Sarawak Multimedia Authority. And Swinburne, in collaboration with Dreamcatcher, is bringing to Sarawak, Malaysia, the biggest multidisciplinary technology-based design competition for undergraduates known as Innovate Malaysia Design Competition. Okay, the goal of the competition is really to provide and to promote innovative culture in engineering design work, to tackle real-world problems with practical engineering solution, and to churn out hopefully the brightest talents for product development, further research, and commercialization. Yeah. Global technology partners of this competition are Google, Intel, Keysight, MathWork, Microsoft, SAS, Altera, and SolidWorks. So Innovate Malaysia Design Competition 2020 Sarawak region, or better known as Innovate Sarawak, is being held online this year because of the pandemic. And this year's competition, we've been really thankful. We've got 76 teams with a total of 113 team members from across Swinburne, Unimas, UCTS, and Curtin, participating in various tech areas here. And this ranges from IoT, big data, mobile and cloud app, as well as automotive, smart manufacturing, and other tech innovation areas. Today, you'll see 9 teams being shortlisted as top winners, and they'll be receiving cash prizes. But more importantly, beyond Innovate Sarawak, some of these teams will continue their journey to compete at Innovate Malaysia Design Competition at national level, happening next Monday, 17 August. This annual event is really possible with the support of key stakeholders, which includes industry, government, and universities. We're really hoping, and I think it's the state government's expectation as well, that Sarawak undergraduates are developed under this initiative and to shine as hopefully top winners of Innovate Malaysia Design Competition. All right. More importantly, I think the focus is really to strengthen the Industry 4.0 talent ecosystem and to prepare Sarawak for this fourth industrial revolution. Yeah. So to kick off today's Innovate Sarawak 2020, we're pleased to invite a few stakeholders to discuss about COVID-19 and the impact, as well as to share their thoughts on how fresh graduates can better face the challenges presented by the current pandemic. We're very lucky this morning to be joined by Professor John Wilson, Deputy Vice Chancellor and Chief Executive Officer of Swinburne, Dr. Nur Azmi Alias, Senior Vice President of the Collaborative Research in Engineering, Science and Technology Center, better known as CRES, and Dr. Ho Po Jin, Chief Executive Officer of Dreamcatcher Consulting. Okay, so our speakers are ready to take on the floor.
Thank you, Haslina. I'm ready.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Yep. Thank you,
Yes,
Haslina.
So I hope my audio is clear, yeah? I've read a few articles, and it says that Bank Negara Malaysia is projecting an overall unemployment rate to increase to 4% this year, yeah? We're also looking at loss of between 1.5 to 2.4 million jobs in Malaysia, according to the Malaysian Institute of Economic Research. Yeah. So taking all this into account, let's start the discussion with looking at what do you think are some of the major impacts of COVID-19 on the job market. So if I could, maybe I'd like to invite Prof. John Wilson to kick off the discussion, if that's okay.
Sure. Look, thanks, Helena, and welcome everybody, and congratulations again to the whole of the organising committee for putting this competition together. I think it's a wonderful competition, bringing university and industry together, and for our students working on the real world problems. So well done. Yeah, look, the global pandemic of COVID-19 has caused a lot of disruption. But I do believe it's very much in the short term. Longer term, those larger disruptors of globalization and digital disruption will keep moving through the 21st century. But certainly, COVID in the short term has made the job market pretty tough right now. I think most companies are probably in that sort of pause situation, if not, sort of shedding jobs because of cash flow issues. So it does make it sort of tougher for our graduates looking for work this year. But, all I can say to all our graduates is, life is, and your working life is quite a long time. And sometimes when you come out into the workforce, it can be boom times and there's a lot of opportunities. Sometimes we're going through a downturn and it's harder, but there will be opportunities to come. And I'll probably talk a little bit more in the session, Haslina, about some of the skill sets that are needed in the workplace, whether we had COVID or we didn't have COVID, but there's a number of good skill sets that you need. But let me save that for later when we start talking about the future of work and future jobs.
Excellent. Okay, thanks for your insight, Prof. John Wilson. I think if you can, Dr. Nur Azmi, maybe you can add on that. What do you think are some of the impact, and what do you think the trend will be like moving ahead? So maybe that's something that you can go towards.
A very good morning to all. Thank you, Haslina. How you can hear me? Fine. Basically, I think the impact gonna be, I'm gonna go get down straight to the point. If business have not embraced digital, so-called technology or digital platform, I mean, this is the time for them to actually do it. Either you do it or you're gonna be, get left behind and potentially gonna losing your business. I think it's kind of a sounds bad, but that's a reality, right? So if whatever business you're in, and because the limitation of movement, limitation to meet people, limitation because of the safety concerns, you have to embrace. It's what we're doing now, or otherwise we'll be traveling to Sarawak and having this chit chat face to face. We can. Because limitation of traveling, limitation of due to the pandemic. So the only way to keep going is you have to use digital platform, and maybe just looking even just education these days. Students are staying at home, cannot get the of seeing their professors, their lecturers face to face. People working in the office, they have to limit the so-called number of people in the office, right? So it's going to get down to either you're in or you're embracing digital platform, or you don't. That's going to be key for businesses, yeah. And you see how even like Asia, I mean their slogan is everyone can fly, but now most people can't fly, right? Number three, we can get very cheap airfare. Nobody can fly because of the pandemic. So that's going to be the impact. So we'll talk more about that. I think, again, I get down to it's all about embracing digital platform in everything that we do, almost, right? So I think that's the key thing. I'll stop and then continue further discussion along that line.
What about you, Dr. Pojin? We've heard comments from Prof. Wilson on the changing environment. Dr. Azmi said how businesses are finding new ways of coping and changing the way they operate. What's your sense of the current job market, and do you think businesses are actually making this change fast enough to be able to continue to provide employment and creating a market where fresh graduates can enter into quite competitively? What's your sense?
Morning. Thank you, Hasrina. Good morning to all the participants of Innovate Malaysia and Innovate Sarawak. Can you hear me well? Okay, right, Hasrina? Okay. Yeah. So to add on to John and Dr. Narasmi comment, I think the impact of COVID-19 to the job market very depends on which sector is the industry, right? As Dr. Narasmi say, cannot travel and all those things. So the first sector that is hit badly will be in the traditional service sector and also the retail sector, right? So you can see that tourism-related businesses like hotel, transportation, shopping complex, restaurant, tourist resort, they are all affected badly, right? Hotel are closing down, resort are closing down, airline are all retrenching, downsizing, and so on, right? So I think this factor may not be recovered in the near future, maybe 1 year, 1.5 years down the road, until the public confidence of traveling and safety come back, right? That will only happen when you have the vaccine that is reliable, right? So I think this sector will be downsizing and retrenching worker in the near future. So it's not a good area to get in for the graduates, right? For the near future. The other sector that is actually important is actually essential goods, right? Food production, toiletry, tissue papers, and all those essential, and also high-tech manufacturing, which is big in Malaysia. My last few weeks I've been visiting some industry, and I find that the sector remain vibrant, especially the electronic sectors. Some growth in this sector, they are still hiring, selective hiring because of the China's-US trade war. So they are a factory that move over to Southeast Asia and also into Malaysia. So for this sector of high-tech electronic manufacturing and also the essential goods, right? You can join Nestle, you can join, Unilever and Lever Brother and so on, right? So these are the sector that is actually growing, and they are doing selective hiring right now, right? And also replacement hiring, meaning people leave and therefore they have to replace. So they are not downsizing as per se. Third sector that is very important now is the medical devices and pharmaceutical industry. So you look at medical devices right now, I think you heard about Top Glove. Right now they are the largest, probably the largest or second largest in the share market in Malaysia. So the medical devices and also a pharmaceutical industry in Malaysia, they will be doing well. The glove industry, the mask manufacturing, sanitizer, medical sterile devices, and so on, right? So for those engineering students, even though they are taught life science or pharmaceutical industry, that could be an area that you should explore as well. And it's going to be a growth sector. The other sector that I look at is the imaging sector. I don't know what it means for now, but the obvious one right now is that the logistics, the ICT industry, right, digitalization. So now with COVID-19, you see a lot of digitization happen, right? And adoption, business start to transform and then try to survive in this difficult and changing environment. So what I see is that e-commerce, online details, point-to-point logistics, right? And also IT infrastructure support, software and AI, gaming and VR. So these are the area of industry that fresh graduates can potentially look into, right? To see that whether how the new normal, the new norm is going to form in this digitization and how fast the adoption and also the business model. So I think for fresh graduates, the last sector that's emerging is the one that they should try to find a way to explore. Right, so I think we'll talk about later on the skill sets and others. So that's my input, Hasrina.
So very great insight. Yeah, so we can see a changing shift, yeah, in the way the job market is moving forward and which industry will thrive. You use a lot of the word selected hiring. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on what do you think industry are looking for when they're looking for this selected group of hires? Why the word selected, you reckon?
Yeah, I guess the question is for me, right, Hasina?
Yes, that's right, yeah. The rest can spend on it.
Yeah, I think with COVID-19, nobody can predict, right, whether there's a second wave, there's a third wave, and how fast the vaccination discovery process will take place. So companies are more cautious in terms of hiring. So they will hire, they will not slow down the R&D for sure. So there will be a lot of attention still putting on and press on to R&D projects. So those areas they will still hire as per needs, right? Whereas business expansions wise, unless there's strong demand and sustainable demand, they will not invest. So in a way, I think long-term strategies, company will press ahead and they will kind of like look very seriously on the production capacity. So in that area, they are kind of like a bit more cautious, right?
Okay.
So R&D seems to be the area that I think you will see continuous hiring. Company like Intel and so on, where they are heavily into R&D. I think they will still hire.
Okay. So I guess a lot of the hiring will be based on what value that person has to offer the company, isn't it? And we're looking also at a change in the way people would hire. Okay. Could maybe Prof. John Wilson expand on how do you think companies, what do you think companies will look for in fresh graduate in this current condition in terms of hiring? What sort of values and skill sets would they be focused on, in your opinion?
Sure. And I guess just to add to the selective hiring, it's I think for all companies right now, it's all about cash flow. So if your business is still going well and you've still got plenty of cash, you probably will be doing selective hiring. But if your cash is not great, you'll be probably having to stand people down and all sorts of things like that. So it depends on the industry you're in, whether you've been greatly affected by COVID and your sales and therefore your cash and how much you can afford for people. But maybe if we move on to sort of the skill set, because I'm an optimist, but I do believe COVID-19 will pass, and in a few years' time we'll be thinking, I remember about COVID-19, and but until we have a safe vaccine, it is going to be around. But I think we've been, from an education point of view, sort of changing the way we educate over the last. Everyone's evolving. But if you're looking at the great trends that have been happening, which have actually been a little bit affected badly and also very well with COVID-19, is around globalization and digitalization. So globalization is something where jobs are moving around the world according to where you get the best value for that work being performed. And of course, with COVID-19, that's really upsetting those global supply chains. So there's an example there of COVID-19 affecting that globalization trend. Then the other big trend, which is really the big one in the 21st century, is about the digital disruption. And our fellow panel speakers have talked a little bit about the importance of digital. But with digital, it brings change very quickly. And we saw through COVID-19, those who have already embraced digitalisation are performing much better than those that haven't. But it sort of comes into the skill set for the graduates nowadays for what's expected in the workforce. And I always talk about the T professional, and can you sort of see my big capital T there? The vertical part there is about the discipline strength that the graduate has. So that's all about their core area. If it's in engineering, it's ICT, but it's understanding the technical side and having good depth in critical thinking there. The horizontal part here is all about the breadth, if you like. So it's about communication, collaboration, creativity. And in some ways, if the graduate hasn't got those, that is not a T professional, then they're going to struggle. Just having the discipline strength doesn't mean you can work effectively in a team and effectively in industry. And just having the collaborative and communication skills without any depth doesn't mean too much. So you really need both, both parts. So I call it the T professional. But I think what COVID-19 has really amplified is below the T professional is you, the individual. You're the platform. And to me, that's probably the most important part for any student, any person, the way they're going to develop themselves. You've got to have a curiosity and a learning quotient. So you've got to be able to continuously learn, keep adapting. You've got to be, I always say you'll be physically fit, but also mentally fit as well. So you've got to be resilient. And I think, if you're a good learning individual, someone who's curious and wants to keep learning, you will do very, very well. You'll be a successful T professional, but you'll keep adapting to the changing needs of what the economy and what the society needs. None of us in this room can sort of predict what it's going to be like in 10 years' time or 20 years' time, but we can say that the rate of change will be getting quicker and faster, and technology will be just really infused throughout the workforce. There'll be a lot of sort of augmented work with technology and the human being there. And the most important thing to me is you've got to just keep learning, looking for opportunities, having that growth mindset so that you can actually adapt and see opportunities and run with them. And for those who do that, the world is the oyster. But if you feel as if when you graduate, you've got all the skills you need, you're not going to learn anymore, you're going to be in massive trouble. So to me, it's a big attitude thing for the individual when they come out to keep learning. But from a university point of view, we're certainly trying to create that T professional. But that platform, which is our own selves, is a really important part there to keep adapting.
Wonderful insight. I love the T concept, and I think that's really, resonates very well with this time as well, to understand that it's about the individual and what he or she has to offer. Okay, but it can be quite a scary time to enter the market here because so much uncertainty, right?
Yep.
So, as me, I mean, apart from this growth mindset, the ability to adapt and all that, what else? How else do you think they can better prepare? And what areas can they look towards in terms of getting more opportunities or keeping an eye out for those opportunities? How can they do that?
Yeah, I think, it's a great, notion that John was mentioning about, creating this T person, and, everybody has to build themselves towards being a T person. And you're right, I think, you need to have both the depth of the particular domain area versus ability to work across different, areas, in terms of how do you communicate. I think communication will no longer be the face-to-face communication. I think people has to be comfortable having a video conferencing. I think when we see, over the last couple of years, the challenges or the comments from the industry, graduates must be able to communicate, confidently in terms of what they are trying to explain, and not, to get into too technical sometimes when they explain to vice president or some senior, management person in the company, able to translate the information that is technical to a layman's kind of a terminology, right? And to do that in video conferencing, I think we're talking, just a couple of days ago with, Pojin, how do you explain some of the technical work that you're doing using video conferencing? I think the ability to use digital media, the ability to use the technology to present your work, rather than having to physically able to show you and me or Prof. John Wilson what, the students are doing. They have to be translated, to capture the moment of the good work they have done, and able to showcase it through video conference, through a video. I think a different kind of a skill set of knowledge they need to acquire. Either they have to learn by themselves, or they acquire through somebody who can help them to say, hey, can you show me? And I'm pretty sure, even for this Innovate Sarawak, they have to showcase their, work, the hardware engineering or the hardware prototype. And how do you showcase that, without having to be. So it's a little bit of a different kind of mindset, thinking, what can I do to relay my message to the person that is on the other line, across from, between Sarawak and Penang, for example. I think the Innovate, so-called Innovate Malaysia, going to be hosted in Penang, and you are from Sarawak. How do you present that, right? And those are the new skills they have to adopt, right? Collaboration, when you work in the distributed team, across different states, different towns, different countries, how do you able to to be as effective, right? You'll be able, because you probably would never get to see anyone in your team over the next 1 or 2 years even, right? And people has been stuck in China, people have been stuck in the US, they can't come to Malaysia, and vice versa. Business has to go on, right? And it's not a business as usual. Business with a new norm, right? So how do you actually now relay this message and ability to use online, so-called, a platform for sharing your technical work? I mean, there's some design work need to be shared, and how do you actually able to do that comfortably, right? Adopting, when you say digital, technology, not so much just social media, not so much just video conferencing, even sharing your work, from one stage of your ideation to design to prototyping. How do you actually show that, right? That's the new skills they have to adopt. And these are not new technology. The technology has been around for so many years. In a way, I'm maybe used to, we are glad that COVID happened to kind of to use that kind of thinking to basically accelerate the adoption of digital technology, right? We've been talking about manufacturing without having to be in the plant, right? How do you control your manufacturing using robots, but you can do it from the comfort of your own home? And here's the chance, right? So if you're able to so-called program the robot and do what you want to do, but in the comfort of your own home, and still deliver the product. And I think that's will be the so-called the opportunity and the skills that people are going to be looking at. I'm from what we're doing in CREST, we want to see how we can drive more of this technology that is leveraging digital platform, but still enable to do what you normally do without a digital platform, right? So this additional technology they have to adopt, additional knowledge, a way of doing things that graduates has to adopt. So these are the skills that company going to be looking at, right? So you're going to be better than your buddy, your friend, or whoever out there looking for that one job. You must have the skills. I think this is the differentiator that any employer is going to be looking at.
So it sounds to me like it's not only a matter of adopting digital technology, right? It also sounds to me almost as if they need an entrepreneurial mindset in dealing with the current climate.
Maybe a comment when we say entrepreneurial, ability to sell themselves, ability to sell their work, right? It's not so much having to have their own company. The entrepreneurial skills is about selling your idea, selling your hard work, your idea and prototyping that you have done if you're an engineer, but in a form that people can see without having physically present, right? So this is the new way of, I need to sell my idea to Prof. John Wilson. I'm here in Penang. How do I do that? I need to show the process is working. I need to show that it's producing. So I need to come up with okay, maybe this is where I need to go and talk to somebody from the arts and media department, whatever, or faculty. How do I show that this whole so-called narration of my idea to how the process works to build a new product? You cannot show that because John cannot be here unless you can teleport John, right? That's something else. But you need to actually now using the digital media, the video conferencing, and maybe using a technique like what Jane was saying, using AR, VR technology, and how do you actually now getting those knowledge to become I guess a basic know-how and skills for the for the graduates. It's no longer a nice to have, but a must have. Looks like it, right?
Yep. Okay, sounds like, I mean, interesting. So mindset growth, having a broad range of skills and want to continue to pursue lifelong learning. I think you can't stop learning. And you highlighted an entrepreneurial mindset that's also critical in this day and age, yeah? So I just want to go back to Pojin's thoughts, yeah? Because Dr. Ho, you mentioned that the job market's changing. Some of the areas you mentioned sounds to me like it's moving towards more of a gig economy. Okay, where hiring will be done differently. People will hire based on the value you have to offer. Okay, and that's in terms of skill sets as well as your ability to communicate. How do you think this will? How can graduates look at this gig economy and move towards it? And what sort of expectations should they set in terms of salary, etc., in those areas?
Yeah. John brought out the nice model, right? And Dr. Nori is kind of like elaborate on it. I would like to add one more dimension to that T models, right? The vertical is kind of like your competency, technical competencies. The horizontal is kind of like your personal effectiveness and soft skills, right? I think the third dimension, as we start to move into gig economy, start to move into more kind of like flexi work arrangement, is the ability to serve, right? What it means is that you need to enhance the empathy, the level of empathy to who you are going to impact, who you are going to serve. So the third dimension, I guess, is into first empathy, trying to understand why you are needed, what are people looking for, right? And therefore you can fit into that whole ecosystem and produce your value, right? So I think the second element that Dr. Norasli brought up in that third dimension would be entrepreneurship, where how do you create a win situation, like a win for people who are paying you, a win for people who are hiring you. At the same time, you are not being victimized, and you also win in terms of getting the right amount of salary or the right amount of payment for the work you do. So I guess the third dimension that fresh graduate have to seriously look into is to the empathy, the ability to actually empathize with people, right? Why is my employer hiring me, right? Why are they paying 4,000 for me, right? Why do they need me here? Why do they allow me to work flexi hour at home and flexi arrangement, right? And the other thing is, if you were to go all out and like Dr. Narasmi say, you have to sell yourself, right? So now, how do you pitch yourself to the employer, right? How do you tell them that you have value to them and they should collaborate with you, right? Employment in the future is not about I hire you and you owe me, right? It's not about I hire you and you give me your 8 hours a day. Right? 9 to 5 job is gone. It's gone, right? Likely it's going to be, gone in the next 10, 15 years, right? That kind of arrangement, right? So I think the third dimension is empathy and also ability to strike a kind of like a deal, right? Where that I would classify loosely as entrepreneurship skill, where you try to create a win-win situation for yourself as well as for your customer or your employer. So I think that third dimension is kind of like, to me, is getting more and more important, right? In the past, employee can say, okay, you pay me 3,000, I give my 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and as long as I'm present in the office, you can't fire me, you can't say anything, I'll get my salary at the end of the month, right? So I think that kind of concept is going to phase out, especially with COVID-19. Now you see a lot of people are working from home. The boss don't even see their employee, right? What they do when they clock in, right? But as long as the work is get done and they can see the result, the boss don't bother anymore. So now that leads us to the way that it may accelerate the process of, now I pay you only for your output. I don't see you, right? Now I pay you only for your values. As long as you can give me this value, I'm willing to pay. Whether you are physically present or not, I'm willing to pay. So now when physically not present, then paying for time-based payment, time-based salary, start to lose is important in the future job employment. Right? So that will lead to our next discussion probably on what happened to the gig economy and the future, right? So we will proceed for that discussion later.
Yeah, it's pretty uncertain, yeah, because I mean, in the past, if you think about it in now time, and I think even with the graduates right now who entered uni, they were on an assumption that I'll graduate and I'll get a salary as an engineer at the start of 3.5 grand, for example, or whatever the market rate is, yeah. So it's interesting when Dr. Ho, you mentioned that this will no longer be the case. So how can, I mean, it's good to highlight that yes, they need competency, they need soft skills. And yes, they need EQ or emotional quotient or empathy, okay? But how do they actually navigate in this environment in a way that they can be effective? Let's say if I'm going to go out into the market in a month or 2 or 3, how would I navigate that process? Is there a way that I can do it in knowing that I will not be victimized and that it's fair pay and that I will be able to contribute meaningfully? Is there a way? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think my take is this, right? When we talk about empathy, is that can you feel the pain of your customer? That's the first question, right? So when you slice up the thing, is like, okay, why is my employer willing to pay 4,000 a month for me to join him? He must feel a pain to pay 4,000, right? So if the fresh graduates to go out or graduates to go out to find a job, right? You must realize that they are not paying for your 8 hours. Your 8 hours have no meaning there, or no value to them, right? You come in and sit in the office have no value, right? So they hire you for a purpose, right? So I think the empathy side is that before you enter the job, you have to ask your employer, right? If you don't know, why you pay 4,000 for me a month, right? To come to your office, why? The employer will tell you exactly what he wants. It's so easy, right? I mean, they are paying you. So I think for graduates, the first thing is in the interview, don't worry. Ask your employer what is their pain, why you hire me, right? So that will be the first step where you take in, the input of whoever your paymaster, right? Why are you needed? It's the same as like Apple creating their iPhone 12 or whatever. Right? They have to ask the customer, right? What is the customer looking for my products? It's the same thing. You are for your product. Dr. Norasi rightly say, hey, you have to try to promote yourself, right? You have to sell. You have to sell to your employer. So the easiest way is ask.
Okay, John, you wanted to add something.
I was going to just follow on from Dr. Hopon Yin, because I think we've seen the gig economy coming, right? And I guess when you look at some of the services you've had in the past at home, where you get a plumber around or an electrician, I mean, that's been a long-term form of a gig economy where you only pay for the service and really the output that's there. And we're seeing that happening more with the professional services in some industries. But I don't think the gig economy is going to stretch across all industries. I think there are some areas where you can break jobs up into specific tasks. And so where it's a specific task, I can see how that gets sort of offered out into a tender thing and people bid for it. And as Dr. Hopojin says, they bid for that work and you've got to sell and how you get it. But there's still going to be a lot of work done by companies, small, medium-sized companies, large companies, because the nature of work is complex, and it doesn't always break down to this person does this task, this person does that task. There's a lot of overlapping. So I think for the graduates to be out there, I wouldn't be getting too concerned that, oh my God, it's all gone gig. It won't go all gig. There'll be still employers employing you on a monthly sort of salary rate like that. But everything we've been talking about today is just so important for the graduate today is to not only have that discipline depth, but you must have that breadth and that inner confidence to be able to deliver. And so, you know, if I take my T professional, I'll be saying that top part's the EQ. That's the empathy part. The vertical part is the IQ part. And then the bottom, which is, you know, how you are as an individual, is the LQ, your learning quotient. So I'll be sort of saying that. And above all, you've got to have that digital quotient. So you've got to be, you know, digitally literate in this work. So I'd say we've always had IQ. EQ's been developing. Learning quotient's been an unwritten law, but it's coming really to the forefront that you must keep learning. You must keep learning throughout your time. And part of that learning will be around digital skills, because you know, as COVID-19 shown, those companies that have digital processes in place have been able to keep working and keep operating quite successfully. Those which are more paper-based and requiring people in the office to do things, or face-to-face retail, has struggled, right? So that's my take.
Wow.
T professional, with the LQ, EQ, IQ, LQ, and DQ around the whole thing. But I think, you know, I'd say, look, graduates today, I wouldn't be getting, if I was going to be graduating, I wouldn't be feeling fearsome about this whole thing. I could see a lot of opportunity there, but it means you've really got to really ensure that you are a full individual. So you've got that attitude, you want to keep learning, you're strong in your discipline, but you also listen to people, you work with people, you're a team player. Ideally, you'd be playing team sports and other things like that, which demonstrate that you can work in teams. If you've got those things, yeah, the world's your oyster. Good luck.
And if they don't feel as confident, Dr. Norazmi, do you have some advice that you could give them?
I think it's great. I mean, we can elaborate the three different, you know, skills or quotient, technical skills, the digital skills, and also the entrepreneurial, and also the empathy skills. I think at the end of the day, you know, graduate, don't worry if you don't have all that three, you know, that we mentioned. We don't want to scare you off, you know, the young graduates. All these are, you know, you can learn. You know, you can pick up the, you know, or your laptop, your computer. There's a lot of this, you know, learning available for you to pick up, and you know, this is the chance for you to, you know, get yourself to be known in the so-called digital, you know, media, right? Let's say how do you get yourself, you know, ready for this? I think students maybe as early as when they are, you know, in the uni, get a profile up in LinkedIn, get a profile up in the so-called the professionals kind of platform, and tell people and build your CV from there, right? Because, you know, people will start to look at LinkedIn, look in terms of all the social media, who you are and what are you doing. Anyway, and employer going to be looking at, you know, okay, you have this technical skill. What about your other, you know, communication skill? How do you work with people, you know, that is not, you know, no longer close or nearby, you know, in your own hometown? Or how do you collaborate with people from different part of the world? And these are the some of the skills that you can pick up, and you can start, you know, putting yourself out there, and then start to ask questions. And you know, on LinkedIn, you look in terms of what are questions you're asking, what are things that you're posting, what are things that you are, you know, so-called like in the some of the professional or even just a social platform, right? It's very important to build your so-called profile there. What skills you don't have, go and pick up and learn. And there's a lot of online learning you can pick up. Some free learning. There's some, you know, very cheap, and you get some good offerings from all different platforms, and embrace that, right? Because learning also going to be, you know, done digitally. But one more thing I want to add is discipline. When you are, you know, going into this so-called COVID-19 kind of era, you need to be able to have discipline to execute the job given to you without having to have your supervisor breathing, you know, behind your neck, right? and you don't have anything looking at you. Hey, are you in the office today? You know, 9 to 5. Are you sitting at your chairs? Are you getting your job done? Nobody gonna supervising you. You know, looking at you for, you know, day in and day out. It's all about, like, you know, Pojin said, the output. You know, so it's you are given a task you have to deliver. In time, nobody gonna check on you. Are you halfway through? Are you three-quarter way through? Or you are getting done? You have problems, raise up, right? So you have to be willing to tell, whoever your boss is, yeah, I have a problem. Let's go pick up the phone and then talk, right? If you are stay quiet, because digital, platform, you have to get yourself out there and be seen. In the office, people can look at you. You look a little bit about, look at body language, then your boss will know that you have problems trying to get job done, right? But in digital, so-called, so-called world, you have to show or you have to tell, I have a problem. So you have to be very open to say, I need help, or I need somebody to review my work. Discipline and able to communicate openly. You have challenges, you have to do it. Otherwise, you're going to be losing to the rest of the world. Those are very important, right? And also discipline of not to overwork yourself, because with digital platform you can easily work 24/7 without having limitations. So you also have to have discipline. Say, hey, this is my time of work. This is my time for myself. This is my time for family, right? And work both ways. Discipline of delivering your job, and discipline for the best of you, your family, and your career. So and those are the things that they have to pick up, and we don't have it yet. You can learn. No worries. Yeah.
Very good advice. And one thing I'm starting to pick up from the conversation is really the way it's changing in a way that we have to become more human in this digital world. So that's an interesting point. Yeah, I notice across what you're saying, whether it's technical competency, emotional quotient, learning quotient, it sounds almost like we're going back to the essence of really what it means to be human and to function in a very value-based environment.
I agree. Yeah.
So maybe last comment from Prof. John, and then we'll move on to Dr. Hu, and then I think our time will be up. So John, in this more human environment, go ahead.
Sure. And let me just expand on that, with us being human, but networks and friends and contacts in the industry are so important. And Dr. Asmi was talking about having a LinkedIn profile and building that one. But I think for everyone in the workshop today, the fact that you're actually doing these external competitions is just what employers are looking for. Just what they're looking for. They're looking for graduates who have got initiative, who do those extra type of activities. And if you're doing internships or you're doing external competitions with real industry projects, working in teams, you're sort of simulating what the workplace is actually like anyway. So I think everybody who's involved with this competition is in a very strong position when they graduate for getting jobs, because they've got a real life example. They can share with employers how they were given a nasty problem. We didn't quite know what the solution was going to be. We brainstormed, we used a lot of design thinking, we used a lot of our skills we learned, and working together. Because there's one thing when you work together and you're bouncing ideas, it's amazing the success you have, and it's so much easier than working just by yourself on a problem when you're working together and bouncing. So that's a great demonstration to me of that T professional, the fact that you can actually solve problems like that in a team environment, and they're real world type problems. So good on you all for being part of today's workshop and being part of the competition. And that's the sort of attributes which employers are actually looking for. So please don't feel too scared from what we're saying. There's a lot of opportunity around there, and you are demonstrating that right now. But maintain that initiative, that motivation, that hunger to do different things, and you will do very well. And stay connected with other people, because that's very much a connected world now.
Fantastic. That's wonderful advice. Okay. Dr. Kojin, do you want to wrap up on that with the last comment and advice from you for the students?
Yeah, I think let me go into a bit more micro, where you are going to, the participant is going to face, right, almost now or a few months ago and the next few months, right, how to prepare for your job interview. I think that's important part, right? So I think the important part is when you go interview, right? How we will talk about it if you need. Let's take this a separate session. The first thing you have to do is you have to show your passion on the job, right? So if the employer can feel you have passion on the job, they know that you're going to enjoy the job. That's the first thing, right? Because only you enjoy the job that you will be lasting longer in the company, right? And every day you will feel motivated to work. So the first thing you look for a job is actually you have to show a lot of passion that this is the right job for you. I love this job. And you need to let the employer feel it right? During the interview session.
Agreed.
Yeah. The second point is that you have to subtly show that you are a keen and fast learner, the LQ, like the learning quotient. So how you can use Innovate Malaysia project as you know nothing in the beginning and you come up with something at the end, right? And this is how you learn, right? These are not covered in the university curriculum and so on. And you go to Coursera, you go to wherever, where you source through and just demonstrate that you are a keen and fast learner, because the future is unpredictable. The technology is changing. If you have that learning quotient, so-called, right? Employee will like you because you are more agile. You're more easily adapted to changing environment. Yeah. So that's the second part. You really have to show that you are a keen and fast learner. The third point is that you need to be able to demonstrate that you are a problem solver. Right? Again, in Malaysia, Innovate Sarawak project is a good topic for you to elaborate on and talk about it. Right? You can lure your interviewer to talk about it, and you can show, right? So I think the difficult part of problem solving is you have to show the employer, right, how you define a very complex situation, appear complex, to siphon to a simple problem statement. And then you have a very practical way of solving that simple. All the complex problem cannot be solved. In this world, if you see something very complex, and when you start to explain, your employer cannot understand it, then it cannot be solved. Right? So now you have to subtly show your employer the problem is complex, and you are able to reduce it to a simpler form that you are able to address that problem. So when we look at a problem solver, we want you to upgrade the problem. And we want to see how you can simplify the problem to a manageable level and practical level, and you solve it. Right? So I think the third part in the interview process, you have to think how to tell your employer you are a problem solver. Right? The fourth part is that people are looking for people with positive attitude. So you have to subtly also show that you are positive and you grab all the opportunity given to you. It's a growth mindset, right? So in a way, you can say how you fail in your projects and so on, and what are the challenges, but you stay positive, you're talking to people, people offer you some help, and you take the opportunity and you just grow, and that's your projects, right? So I think there are, at least I can list out 4 elements that when you approach your employer, right, you can show your capability, right? The other part is that now we talk about you have to let your employer know that you care, right? So how do you show that? Ask many questions about the projects, ask many questions that they are about to give you, the role that they are about to give you. Ask many questions. I think if I'm an interviewer, I would like the interviewer to ask me, what exactly you want me to do? What exactly I can help in this situation? And I will be impressed. I need you to do all these things, right? So if you can show that you care about the job, right, and you just want to know how you can contribute. So try to do that as well. The last part, I think a lot of graduates may think is important, which I don't think is that important, is to ask the employer, what am I entitled to? What is my salary? How many days of annual leave I will get? Do I get this claim? Do I get that claim? Most of the company now with labor law and all those things, they have quite a reasonable and standard salary and claim package for you. So quite standard. You don't get a lot of different because employer are all smart people, right? They compare each other, they benchmark each other. So don't spend your valuable time trying to clarify you are getting 14 days annual leave or 15 days annual leave. You are getting a 3,005 or 3,006. $100 don't make a lot of difference a month, but more important, you get in a job that you like. Right? So I think for me, the last thing you want is to actually spend a lot of time trying to say, what am I entitled to, right? If you hire me. I think, especially as fresh graduate, I mean, like you are very, very senior CEO level, then it's a very, very different, because the salary package is kind of a bit more complex, right? It involves stock option, it's not many things. But as a shareholder, as a fresh graduate, you get your salary, you get your annual leave, you get what you're entitled for claim. Everything is very standard. Don't waste time as a fresh graduate. You don't have a lot of bargaining chip anyway.
No,
right?
I wouldn't even go there on the interview. I'll do that as part. Once you've been offered a job, then you can start negotiating. But don't mention money in an interview.
Agreed.
So I think that is preparing yourself for interview, and sometimes it's not your own making. You are good, you are capable, but because of COVID-19, job opportunity is not there. You're competing with people who are more experienced for the same job, and just in case, you didn't land on a job, right? You didn't get a job. Don't worry, right? Proceed to further study. Sign on to England universities, get a master degrees, or just continue, because this COVID-19 is going to last for a year, maybe 2 years. By the time the COVID-19 over, you got a master degree.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, yeah. So the backup plan is, if you can't get a job and you can afford, go ahead and further study, right? Yeah. So that's why I have
excellent advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent advice from all three. We've got actually 2 questions, so I actually wanted to close the session. But before we do that, let's answer some of these questions. Yeah. So one of the questions that the student asked, what did employer want to see from fresh graduate who has no experience? And hang on, let me just rephrase that. I think the person's trying to ask, what do employer expect from fresh graduate, or would like to see from fresh graduate in this struggling economy?
I think what Dr. Ho Po Jin just said, how to best go through a job interview is exactly what that employer is looking for. He's looking, for all those things that Ho Po Jin talked about. The passion, the fast learner, problem solver, positive attitude, empathy, and of course, the right technical skills, of course, is in there as well. But I just thought that was wonderful advice.
So I think for the students asking that question, take on what Dr. Pojin specified in the things you need to address during an interview. I think you nailed your job. All right. Another participant, Hazira, said, is it important for a fresh graduate to know everything before joining a company?
I think let me try to answer that. I think at least when you interview for a company, you must do your research about the company. I think you need to be understanding what company is doing and what they are looking for, and how is the learning during your study days and your project that you're doing could relate to what the company's business is. And basically, you should be looking at, not asking the question like what you think, not asking about the salary, how many leaves do you have, how many medical days off do you have. It's about you telling them, this is what I can do for you, right? And I think you need to do a bit of homework to answer that question, and to offer to say, this is I'm applying for this job with XYZ company because I have the skills and it's relevant to what you're doing. I think at least you are telling the company, I'm doing a little bit of my research about your company already. I know what you're looking for, and I have that skill. So I think ability also to sell about who you are, what you can do, and what you can offer and ask not what the company can do for you. Tell them what you can do for them, right?
Yeah.
And that's the most important part. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's one more coming in. So go ahead, Dr. Poji.
So I think as a person who attend interview, right? If you are confident enough, you can actually flip the table, right? That's why I say you ask your employer, what are you looking for? What kind of skill you want me to learn? So then you are not caught, like say they bombard you with all the technical questions. You ask them first, right? So sometimes you then you can actually pace to actually to do the discussion, right? To say, okay, now I don't have this skill set. How do I fit into that job? So sometimes in the interview, right? If you show a lot of energy and passion, you ask them what is the requirement for the job, what kind of special skill, right? And if they start to special skill, then you can actually pull out, oh, I have studied this subject, right? We actually cover some of these things. Then the conversation will start to move, right? If you start to be very passive and wait for them to bombard you with questions from everywhere, then you will not perform very well in that interview, right? So my advice to graduates, when you go for, if there's nothing wrong, you ask what is it about the job. It's so natural a question, right? It's a very natural question to ask, right? What do you expect from me, right? Because I find that sometimes interviewer try to ask interviewee the thing that they don't know, the thing that they know most and best, but the thing that definitely the too specific that the interviewee will not be able to answer. I think that's a wrong tactic, right? So my advice, but there are many interviewers doing that, right? So my advice to interviewee is you pace it, you ask what is required of you. That will give you a lot more control in the interview session.
So that's
prepared, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's good advice. It's probably the summary of all that is be very well prepared when you go into the interview and make sure you do research the background to that company so that you can be proactive in the interview.
Excellent advice. Kam, do we have one more question, Kam? So Kam says there's one more question, so I'm just waiting for Kam to nudge us. But while he's doing that, I think what I can do is just do a quick summary of our discussion. So obviously we've covered a lot of grounds. We've looked at job trends and where the market's shifting towards and how graduates can prepare better for that. We've also addressed the fact that in this digital world, there is a strong need to be more human as well and develop skill sets that are value-based, based on trust, honesty, sincerity, and being upfront. So those, I think, are very important, how would I say, value system that they also have to develop apart from passion and technical skills. Okay, so we've got one last question. Yeah, due to and this is a long one, and I'm going to read it. Due to the current situation of the COVID pandemic, the amount of money a fresh grad is able to spend as initial capital to move into a new country or state for better job opportunities will be hard to come by due to the limitation of spending power. Therefore, it will cost the individual to just stay in their hometown to avoid paying for rent, etc. How would you advise that individual in their career path in terms of climbing the corporate ladder? So what they're saying is, well, it's getting more globalized. It also means that I will have economic limitation and may not be able to move to take on a job somewhere else. Okay, what's your advice for their career pathway and growth?
Maybe I'll say, I mean, when your working life is actually quite long, so I know you always think that first job is so important, but you'll probably work for about 15 different companies over the next 40 years. So I wouldn't get too hung up on that very first company. But it's all about, for me, it's always follow the opportunities, do the very best you can with every opportunity you have, and the rest will look after itself.
Wonderful advice. Okay, what about Dr. Norazmi? Anything you want to add on to that last question?
No, I think in this so-called pandemic era, being away from the job or being in a different country or different cities of where the job is or where you're going to be hired for, it should not be a problem, because people expect it, that will be the the new norm, right? And I think the ability for you to work collaboratively in a remote, so-called location from your team members and still able to deliver, I think that's going to be the key thing for the young graduates. And perhaps, by doing that, you can able to do more things, or having perhaps multiple jobs at the same time because of the time difference. If you are the kind of person at a very young age, right? And I think I can see even the learning curve of the young graduate in this pandemic era is probably going to be even more steeper than all of us combined in this call. I think the opportunity is there. Grab it and then embrace the new norm, embrace the digital era. And I think this is how you can actually show that you can be any part of the world. And my last quote will be, work is not a place that you go. Work is what you do. So you can be doing anywhere, right? For any part of the world and still deliver the work. So that's my last so-called comment. Yeah.
Amazing words of wisdom. Okay, Dr. Ho Jin, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it sounds to me it's like in a dilemma, right? It's a chicken and egg question. It's like, do I have money? If I have money, then I can go to the town and start to work on something, right? Or do I have the knowledge? If I have knowledge, then I start to enroll for the job, right? So I think it's whether the job comes first or you learn first, or either you have money first or you go first, right? So I think this is some form of decision making process, and I guess the best thing I can advise graduates is follow your heart and just do it, right? Because you are still young, you are still able to learn, and decision making, there's no right or wrong, right? We make a decision, we move on, we solve problem, we learn, we move on, we solve problem, we learn. The last thing you want is you keep asking the question, right? Do I get money first or do I get job first? Do I learn first or do I get job first? Do I get job first or I learn? So there's no end to it, right? So I think over the many years, nobody understands more than you know yourself, right? So over the past 25 years, I think you know yourself so much that other people, like, I mean, subconsciously, you will know whether you can do it or not, right? You don't put it at a fact. So I think my advice to you is follow your heart and just do it, right? It will fall into place as you start to adjust yourself, but you have to do it. Move on. Don't hesitate and say I can wait for 3 months and keep waiting, So follow your heart. Just do it.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Very, 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 I think, sound advice and eye-opening, I hope, for the participants as well. I'm enlightened. Really nice to have a morning conversation with all three of you. And I think the graduates can take away a lot from the conversation this morning. So if there's no other question, are you happy for me to close the session?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Ms. Lena, for moderating, and to Dr. Hong Xiang, very much my colleague, Dr. Hong Xiang, for being the organizer for today's session. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor John Wilson. Thank you, Dr. Noor Azmi, and thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much,
everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody. Well done at being part of the competition.
That's right.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye.